Center for inviting me to speak today. Renaissance Center is very dear to my heart because I've been an advisor and instructor over the years, over the long time that Renaissance Center has existed. So what I'm here to talk about today is not only the Paycheck program forgiveness, but a little bit of an overview of all of the SBA resources, and specifically 2021 SBA COVID-19 resources, because even though we're headed towards a recovery, we know that there's still a lot of issues going on and still a lot of concerns, and our small businesses are still recovering. We're not fully out of the clear yet. So SBA is going to continue to support small business to make sure that we reach a point where people feel totally recovered or are moving into the next phase of having their businesses be profitable. So today we're going to talk about the continuing COVID relief programs, the Paycheck program, specifically forgiveness, and then other resources and connections. And the Q&A will be throughout, as Martha alluded to. I want to keep this interactive so that you can all ask questions as needed, since you're taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with us. Okay, so the COVID relief programs, PPP as it's known, which was in two different phases, first draw and second draw, is now closed. For all intents and purposes. There's like some small loose ends of some loans still being reviewed, but it's really down to about 1%. It's not very many. Then the other program is called EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That is the one that may be applicable to a lot of folks that still need support, and we're still accepting applications for the program till the end of this year. Then there's the Targeted EIDL Advance, which for all intents and purposes is a grant up to $10,000, but you still need to apply through EIDL, through Economic Injury Disaster Loan, to a link on SBA. Then there's supplemental Targeted EIDL, which businesses could receive up to $5,000, but they also have to apply for EIDL. So right now, businesses could still get a loan and apply for up to $15,000 in grants. Then there's the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which is for more like movie theaters or play theaters or jazz clubs. That program is still open for folks who have that sort of challenge. Then the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is closed, but that is a program that is still being revised, and restaurants and eateries and caterers are still maybe getting announcement of their grant. Then there's a debt relief program, which is for folks that already had some sort of an SBA loan. We're offering relief where people don't have to repay the loan yet. That ends 9/30. And then there's the Community Navigator program that is really important only because it helps a lot of the businesses right now that are working with Renaissance Center, that we want to encourage you to continue to do that. So let's talk about all these things, that these are all the topics. To clarify, the relief funding options are either the loan programs that existed with Paycheck Protection Program, but that is forgivable. Then the debt relief on SBA and 504 loans. Then there's EIDL and SOV and RRF. Okay, so those are the programs, again, just to recap what we're talking about. So let's talk about EIDL. EIDL is available till December 31st or until the funds are exhausted, but right now there's still funds. So we encourage all of you to take advantage of it. How do you use those funds? For working capital, normal operating expenses, such as continuation of healthcare benefits, rents, utilities, fixed debt payments. Very flexible. Pretty much you can use it for whatever you need. Okay, what are the terms? It is a loan at 3.75% for businesses. It's a fixed loan rate. For nonprofits, it's 2.75. It's for 30 years, and there's no prepayment penalty. So you can just decide to apply for the loan. If you get it, you take it. And then if you don't need it, you can pay it off, and there's no prepayment penalty. What is the eligibility? Qualified small businesses, co-ops, with 500 or fewer employees, which are most of the folks that are Renaissance clients. So it's a really good tool. If you're not able to get a traditional loan, I think the EIDL loan is a really good direction for you to go. The loan limit is $500,000. If you want to get more money than you've already requested, you can just go to the portal where you already have an account with SBA and request more funds. The first payment is not due for another 24 months from the note date. So we're trying to extend when folks have to start repaying to give you the flexibility, okay? The targeted advance, I already mentioned that. I really might encourage businesses to just apply for EIDL, even if you decide not to take it, because it's a very easy process. And if you are in a zone, in a geographic area that is considered low income by SBA standards, and it's typically through census tracts, and I'm sure Renaissance Center can help you in identifying that, or we can send you the link on how to find out if where your business is located might qualify. You might be able to get up to $15,000 in grant funding right off the top of the EIDL loan, and then you just accept the grant, and maybe you don't need the remainder of what you applied for. So we encourage you to apply for EIDL because you may be eligible for $15,000 of it being automatically forgiven. Isn't that is a really good opportunity if your business is located in one of these zones. So small businesses, they could be declined for an EIDL loan and still get the grant. You could refuse the approved EIDL loan and still get the grant. You could not submit any additional paperwork and still get the grant. And what that means is that if you've already applied for EIDL, you may be already getting an invitation to apply for targeted advance for this grant. If you guys need clarification, do we want to take any questions at this point? Martha, any questions yet?
No questions in the chat quite yet.
I'm going to keep on going then. Okay, so there's no action required until you're contacted by the SBA. So the qualifications are you're in a low-income community, and again, that comes through. There's a link on the SBA website, which I'm always going to encourage you to be looking at the www.sba.gov, and it'll show you all of the relief programs that exist. And there is a link that I could direct you to, so you can find out on a map whether your business is located in a low-income community deemed by the SBA. You have suffered greater than a 30% economic loss during this pandemic, and that's by comparing your receipts from one year to another. And you have 300 or fewer employers. These are easy thresholds to meet. If you meet the above, a targeted EIDL advance could be available to you to balance out a previous EIDL advance that was given last year, or to give you an additional $10,000. I really hope that you're working with SBA and exploring these options, because SBA is emailing those who may qualify. But if you've not used any SBA product before, maybe you want to apply for EIDL now and see if you become eligible. So what is needed? You do need to have filed taxes, and sometimes I have some small businesses telling me we haven't been filing our taxes. That's going to be of concern, because you do need to have at least your 2019 federal tax returns. Even if you haven't completed your 2020 tax returns, you're going to need to have some idea of what those numbers are going to look like, and eventually file your tax returns. You're going to need either your employer ID number or a social security number. You need confirmation that the information in your original EIDL application is still accurate, or you'll need to update it. One of the things that we're always asking, that even if you go for any sort of loan, you need to file a 4506T. You see that down at the bottom. And that's because SBA is going to work towards getting from the Internal Revenue Service your tax return. It's like a transcripts of your income tax. Okay, so what do you need to do? You want to review the information. One of the things I want to encourage, and I'm going to be talking about this a lot, is using the Renaissance Center advisors, using the Small Business Development Center advisors, using a lot of the resources where the SBA funds a lot of organizations to provide small businesses support, assistance. And I am preaching to the choir, because by virtue of you being on this call today, it means that you are already tapping into the Renaissance Center resources. But we really suggest that you work with an advisor to complete these applications, because they may appear simple, but when you're doing stuff, filing stuff with the federal government, it really behooves you to get all your ducks in a row and get it very well done, because if you forget to cross your T or dot your I, it gets kicked out, and then you have to wait another few months. So we really suggest that you work with an advisor to help you complete a lot of these out, because you're going to want to carefully review the bank account information. I've had folks not put in that information incorrectly, so you want to have an extra set of eyes look at anything that you do, so that somebody else looks at your information and says, yeah, you got this right, or you may have missed something. Don't do it hastily. Don't do it quickly. Do it, make sure you get it right. Okay, so this is the program guidelines. By the way, I'm going to be making this presentation available. I did it in bullet points real quickly so that you're able to quickly go through a checklist and see that you're doing everything correctly. Okay, so again, the criteria is to be located in a low-income community, suffered greater than a 50% economic loss, and have less than 10 or fewer employees to be able to qualify this, which I suspect that a lot of the people on this call fit into that category. And I'm really pleased to talk to you and support you, because SBA is really about supporting the smallest of small businesses, the one that is just getting started, even if it's just 1 employee or 5 employees, that really is getting started. Okay, so there is debt relief for SBA loans if you've before taken advantage of the traditional SBA loan products, which was the 7A loan, the 504 loan, which is for buying your building if you have a storefront building, an actual storefront building, and for microloan borrowers. I mean, SBA has always been there really for small businesses to get them started, to provide support. But right now during the pandemic time, it's been extra crucial and pivotal. But these loan products of the 7A loan and the 504 loan are going to continue to exist. And right now during the pandemic, SBA has been offering relief from having to pay the interest, from having to pay the loans, not been able to withhold, that you can withhold payments. Remember, these loans are also guaranteed, which means that they're made still by a lender through a bank, but the intention is that you're able, that the SBA will guarantee the loan so that the bank can feel confident about giving you that loan. Okay, so PPP, that's the Paycheck Protection Plan, it ended. So right now, the only thing we're going to be talking about in a couple of minutes is forgiveness. But the good news is that it provided over $790 billion in economic relief to small businesses and nonprofits across the nation. And that bottom bullet point is really important. 96% of all the loans went to small businesses with fewer than 20 employees. And I just really want to remind about how SBA is really committed to the really small mom and pop shop. So here's about the Paycheck Protection Plan forgiveness update. Updated simplified forgiveness forms to include PPP loans up to $150,000. If your loan is less than $150,000, there's a really simplified form that I'm going to talk about in a couple of minutes that is really easy to do. And the borrower has up to 10 months from the time the funds were exhausted to apply for forgiveness. Having said that, there were so many people that applied for loans and for forgiveness, and these are unprecedented times where we're still trying to, we've not chartered these waters before. We may, sometimes, even if you didn't do it within 10 months, there's still time. I don't think the SBA is not going to turn you away because it wasn't done within time, because we also know that some of the lenders have been delayed on the processing of some of these. So all of these timelines that we are trying to adhere to can have flexibility. It's just a matter of staying in touch and working through this. So if you have to pay any of the PPP loan, the interest payment is only 1%. That is, that's a very, very low interest rate. There's no prepayment fees. The payments, once the borrower knows how much has been forgiven, the lender will notify the borrower. And if the borrowers do not apply for forgiveness, the payments start 10 months after the last day of the covered period. But it can be extended. There is a lot of flexibility within PPP, because we understand that if a small business applied for PPP, it was all because of the pandemic, and we are here to support that. Okay. So here's something that's good to know. EIDL advances, which those were some of the advances that were given when people applied for EIDL way back in the early days of the pandemic are no longer deducted from the PPP forgiveness payment. The expenses paid with the PPP loans are federally tax deductible. On all of these items, I am not a tax expert. You need to contact the IRS, or I hope you are all working with bookkeepers or accountants to do your taxes and to do any of this stuff, or working with an advisor from the Small Business Development Centers or from the Renaissance Center, or any of these other a lot of nonprofits that help small business, because they're here to support you and help you navigate this. We all know that you own small businesses, not because you're bookkeepers or accountants, yet it's one of the things that you have to do when you own a small business. We so much encourage you to make sure you have a bookkeeper or accountant or or SBDC advisor that can help you navigate all of these sorts of paperwork that you need to do. So there is simplified forgiveness for PPP loans for $150,000 and under. That is really good news. And forgiven PPP loans are not federally taxable income. All good for people that are filing that when you have to file your taxes. So what are the terms of forgiveness? The first and second draw PPP loans made to eligible borrowers qualify for full loan forgiveness if it's during the 8 to 24 week covered period following the loan disbursement. So the key is that we want to keep employment and compensation levels maintained. We want the loan proceeds spent on payroll costs and other eligible expenses. And the split is that at least 60% of the proceeds are spent on payroll, and then the other 40% on all the other expenses. Are there any questions, Marta, at this point?
Yeah, we have one question, looks like from Lourdes here. It says, hi, what determines if you have to pay back?
Well, I think right here we're looking at this, that at least 60% of the proceeds are spent on payroll costs, and that the other 40% is for other expenses. In fact, here are the terms of forgiveness right here, employee and the idea is that you're remember it's called PPP, Paycheck Protection Plan. So the intention is that you were using 60% of your funds to maintain that employee, so that employee didn't get laid off. And it could be that employee could be yourself. Maybe this was one of the good things about the PPP plan. It was also for self-employed small businesses, right? And so the loan proceeds are spent on payroll costs and other eligible expenses. Does that answer the question?
Lulu, go ahead and drop us in the chat.
Okay, so I'll keep on going.
Yes, we do have one more question from Jackie. It says, I'm a sole proprietor with no employees. How do I show payroll?
Well, did you apply? Is this in regard to the PPP loan? Did you apply for PPP?
Jackie, if you'd like to take yourself on.
I'm not, I'm assuming, okay, so I'm assuming if does she have a PPP loan?
She says yes, she has a PPP.
Well, hopefully you did that when you first applied, but now you just need to show some receipts. You know, I'm going to be showing about documentation, so maybe that will help you out a little bit. Let me see if when we go on, and we talk about some of the accountability of this, if it answers your question, okay? Let's keep on going, and I think we'll answer it further along in the presentation. So when to apply for loan forgiveness? A borrower can apply for forgiveness once all the proceeds for which the borrower is requesting forgiveness have been used. If the borrowers do not apply for forgiveness within 10 months after the last day of the covered period, then PPP loan payments are no longer deferred, and then the borrowers will begin to make payments to their PPP lender. So in theory, it's within 10 months you apply, but you know, that is the intention right now, and that's what we want folks to adhere to, is to make sure that from the moment they receive the loan that within 10 months they apply for forgiveness. Okay, how to apply? Remember, PPP loans are through your lender. Hopefully, you have a relationship with your lender. We have been finding that some folks did not, applied through a fintech online. So they've been having a hard time getting a hold of a lender. This is one of these tidbits of advice is that I hope that if you have a bank, a bank that you work with and you did apply for your PP loan through your bank, is that you work on that relationship with your banker and have them help you with some, at least help you process some of this, because I'm sure there's a lot of different stories of folks that they're not able to get a hold of their PPP lender. And we understand that, and that's when I am encouraging you either to check in with me, and I'm going to be giving you my email at the end, and or work with an SBDC or a Renaissance Center advisor to help you out to complete the correct form. And your lender is supposed to provide you through their platform that you applied for the loan with one of the SBA forms that you already use. Now you see a lot of forms listed here, but I suspect that the form that most of our lenders will be using is the 3508S form. Okay, now again, I'm saying here your lender can provide you further guidance on how to submit the application, but if they're not, we're here to help. Okay, so how to apply? You need to compile your documentation. This might be the slide that that is right for the person that was asking the question about how to compile their information on payroll. Okay, it says provide documentation for all payroll periods that overlapped with the covered period. That's that 8 to 24 week during the pandemic. So you're going to need to provide like bank account statements or third-party payroll service reports documenting the amount of cash compensation paid to employees. Your tax forms or equivalent third-party payroll service provider reports that overlap with the covered period. Payroll tax filings reported that will be reported to the IRS. State quarterly business and individual employee wage reporting. It's not all of the above. We're just giving you examples of what you might want to submit. And see the last bullet point here, payment receipts or cancel checks or account statements documenting the amount of any employer contributions to employee health insurance and retirement plans that the borrower can include in the forgiven amount. It is very flexible, okay? It's just, you decide, you know, I hope you're keeping records and that there's something written down that you can provide that demonstrates that you were paid. You know, remember one of the first lessons we always show, and when you own your own business, is to make sure you keep your business account and your personal account separate. So if you've been doing that, you'll be fine. Okay. So what is eligible expense for forgiveness? For borrowers that are individuals with self-employment income who file a 1040, Schedule C or F, what amounts are eligible for forgiveness? Payroll costs, including salary, wages, and tips, up to $100,000 of annualized pay for employee. Okay. You want to now compile your documentation. Remember, that's that other 40% non-payroll. So show anything that brings you at 40%. The list of documents required to be submitted to your lender is not all inclusive. How to apply for forgiveness? You want to submit the forgiveness form and documentation. Complete your loan forgiveness application and submit it to your lender with the required supporting documents, and follow up with your lender to submit additional documentation as requested. Hopefully the first time you submit, you'll be fine. Okay, how to apply? You want to continue communication with your lender. So if the SBA undertakes your review of your loan, your lender will notify of the review. We're not anticipating that there's going to be very many of these reviews, especially if the form you submit is the 3508S. Okay. It is your lender that's responsible to notify you of the forgiveness amount paid by SBA and the date on which your first payment will be due, if applicable. I'm here to let you know that the SBA wants to forgive most loans. So as long as you've done this correctly, and I'm sure you have, when you apply for the PPP loan, you should be okay, and we don't want you to stress about it. Okay, so what is the process? You submit your forgiveness application to your lender, not to the SBA. It goes to your lender. The lender has up to 60 days to review, and then the lender will upload to the SBA, and then SBA has up to 90 days to return a judgment on it, so a decision. So the lender notifies the borrower of the forgiveness amount, and then the remaining balance has to be paid within 2 to 5 year time frame. For the most recent PPP loans, you have up to 5 years. Okay, so The covered period begins on the date that the loan was originally dispersed. It ends on a date selected by the borrower that is at least 8 weeks following the date of the loan disbursement and not more than 24 weeks after the date of the loan disbursement. The covered periods for a first draw PPP loan and a second draw PPP loan cannot overlap, and the borrower must use all of the proceeds from the first draw PPP loan for eligible expenses before the disbursement of the second draw PPP loan. This is only stuff if you have 2 PPP loans. So borrower must retain all documentation in its files for 6 years after the date the loan is forgiven, and so that if you are ever audited, it's just a good recommendation to keep records. The borrower must provide documentation independently to a lender if needed. Sometimes you may not even be asked to supply the documentation, but you want to have it on hand. That's a given, okay? So the forgiveness form, do we have a question at this point, Marta?
Nope, no questions right now.
Okay, excellent. So I'm gonna keep on going then, right? Okay, so the forgiveness form that is the 3508S. I am going to assume that that's the one you're going to be using, okay? To apply for forgiveness, you use 3508 if you're a small business and under a loan of under $150,000. So more about the forms. Each PPP loan must use a separate loan forgiveness application form. That's if you have 2 different PPPs. You cannot use one form to apply for forgiveness of both a first draw and a second draw because they're treated as separate loans, okay? So who can use the 3508S? The one we're talking about for the most part here is a borrower. It has received a PPP loan of $150 or less because the SBA form 3508S requires fewer calculations and less documentation. It does not, listen to this one, this is good. It does not require borrowers to show the calculations used to determine their loan forgiveness amount. But by golly, you better know what your calculations are, but you don't need to submit them for forgiveness, okay? SBA may request information and documents to review those calculations as part of its loan review or audit processes, okay? So hopefully we don't need to appeal, but there is a process for appeals, but that's only the SBA loan review. It's not that the borrower is appealing what the lender did. It's the SBA final process. Anyway, hopefully we're not going to have to deal with appeals here, so this is not applicable. Now, this is the part where I really want to emphasize making sure you're working with an SBA resource partner. But again, I think I'm preaching to the choir because if you're on this call, you're already a good client of the Renaissance Center and you are already tapping into the resources that the Renaissance Center can provide. And we also want you to tap into the Small Business Development Center, into SCORE, which is the Service Corps of Retired Executives. And then there's the Women's Business Centers. But then there's, there's other organizations too, like Working Fund Solutions are the ones that are like the, that provide other sorts of loans. There is the Community Navigator Program. Right now, the SBA is setting up yet a new opportunity to fund organizations to help small businesses. Right now, this is the good news, is that the SBA is really, really focused on providing more funding to small business organizations like the REN Center, like SBDC, so that we are able to make sure that the very small businesses like your own are taking advantage of these resources. So you're already taking advantage of it. Make sure that you suggest to other small businesses that they don't go it alone, that they work with SBDC, SBA, all of these wonderful initials, and use these services because they're here to make sure that all of you get supported. Keep in mind that really the SBA right now really wants to help the small disadvantaged businesses, which traditionally have been women's businesses and minority businesses. So additional resources, if you go to the SBA YouTube channel, you'll find workshops on how to do your PPP forgiveness. You can follow SBA on Twitter. You can sign up for the national or San Francisco newsletter. we encourage you for the most updated information on all of these resources to go to SBA.gov. Sometimes the borrowers find out about things going on before even our district office does. You know, remember, we're in the district office and we're here to connect you to SBA and resources. What we really are is a connector to connect you to the resources like the Renaissance Center, like all of the other SBDC, to connect you to the Office of Disaster Assistance, the Office of Capital Access, which is where these loans are processed, to connect you to lenders. We don't really genuinely do any of the work ourselves. We are connectors. We're here. That's why I'm an outreach and marketing specialist, because I'm trying to troubleshoot to find all of you solutions. So here is the information from the district office. For more information on SBA's local programs and services, SFO mail at sba.gov. But I'm giving you my direct number. Then this is the number of the SBA office. We have not been in the office, which is located in San Francisco during the pandemic. I'm not sure when we'll be back in the office in San Francisco. So in the meantime, you can still email me or call me direct, even though my number is a 202 number. It's local in the Bay Area. It's not in Washington, D.C. So we are really here to support you and answer your questions or concerns and try to connect you to the local resources in your area, because every county has an SBDC. Renaissance Center, I know, is based in San Francisco and in Richmond. Where else are you located now, Martha? Are you guys out in Pittsburgh as well, in Antioch?
Well, we help Contra Costa and Alameda County in the East Bay.
So yeah, so that's the end of my presentation, Martha. At this point, to me, I always want to emphasize SBA has the resources, but for you to really get that local support, make sure you're working with your Renaissance Center advisors and attending the webinars like you guys are doing today. That is what's going to make you a successful business, is by not going it alone. Always tapping into resources that are available to you as a small business that's looking to grow, and sometimes in these times to survive and make it.
Yeah, absolutely. Darlene, thank you so much for that presentation. It was very, very informative. I'd like to very quickly see if anyone has any questions. Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't want to mispronounce your name, but thank you. See your comment there for the presentation. I'm glad that it was helpful. Does anyone have any questions? You want to drop it in the chat or quickly, unmute yourself. I think this would be a great, a good opportunity to ask questions. Yeah, so Christina, yes, we will be, this is being recorded, and we will go ahead and share the recording with everyone that's attended. So you will be able to see that. Yeah, so if anyone, and as you know, I am the Client Success Manager here at the Women's Business Center here at Renaissance. I'm going to drop our email here in the chat, bubc@rencenter.org. Please feel free to email us if you have any individual questions or concerns or need just some more support. Email us at that email, and one of our team members will get back to you and kind of connect with you for next steps. I will go ahead and stop the recording now.